All right, welcome to the Mental Pulse podcast. Today we have with us none other than my childhood friend, Mr. Carlton Rice. Welcome, Carlton.
Thank you, T. I'm excited about it.
Awesome. So happy to have you today. So just wanted you to get us started with kind of telling us who you are and what's your background and what's your athletic identity story.
All right. So Carlton Rice from Huntsville, Alabama. Um, was born into like a sports family. My mom and my dad, like my uncles, all of my uncles just about played sports. So, just growing up, started little league, playing all sports, basketball, baseball, football, soccer. Actually, soccer was the very first sport that I started playing because I had an older brother and, he started out playing, I think, football. And I'm like, I want to play, but I was too young. And so I started out playing soccer until I was old enough to play football. Once I was of age, then I started playing football. But initially, right off the bat, football was like my 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 sport because for some reason I just enjoyed the physicality of a sport, right? So like my brother was older, so all his equipment he would bring home, like I wanted to try it on, like when he brought it, like I automatically just like took over. Like it was what I was wearing the helmet. Like I didn't want to give it up. Like it was just, but football just like gravitated to me from an early age. And so once I was able to like play football, it was like from there on, it was just a love and a passion for me. It was like always, it was never like I was like always excited about going to practice and like getting the uniforms and standing in line for equipment, like at Little League. So that's just kind of like how it all started for me with football. Now I enjoyed all the other sports as well because just by nature I'm competitive, but like the sport that always had like my heart was football. So middle school. So here's a really good transition for me. So of course, you play little league and it's fun and it's all fun and games. I begged my parents to let me transfer. And so I was at a magnet school, Academy for Science and Foreign Language, and I was begging my parents let me go to the public school, which is Davis Hills, which the schools were connected. And so I begged my parents to let me go. So like in like going into the seventh grade, so first through sixth grade, I was at the academy, and then I begged my parents to go let me go to the Davis Hills seventh grade year, and that them allowing me to go to Davis Hills to that public school like transformed my life like tremendously because of course, being at the academy, it was kind of sheltered. Like I was kind of sheltered at the academy, but then I went over next door to the public school Davis Hills, and it was like some Indian everything. You had to grow up, like you had to grow up real
Absolutely.
quick. You had to grow up real quick, and so that's what I did. Like I adjusted to the environment there, and it like playing sports at the middle school was no more fun and games. Like it was like really serious. Like it was serious. Like it was guys that was like much older than I was, right? And so it's like you almost had to survive. Like you had to survive out there, and it was no more fun and games. One of my coaches, which is probably one of my biggest mentors and another people that made a major impact on my life was Arthur Battle. We called him Skipper. He played football at Lee. I can't remember exactly what college he played for, but he was a major impact in my life because when I got to Davis Hills, he was like, he was although he was my cousin and distant relative, like he like gave like every day he would not let me take no plays off. And he was really hard on me. He was like, he was like, you used to being a big fish in a small pond. Now you just a fish another pond. And so those were some of the things that he would say to let me know, hey, you're not all that. You got to work for it just like everybody else. And so that was a major turning point. My parents allowing me to go to Davis Hills and kind of, having to survive, and coming from, playing sports from fun and games to now this is real, this is serious. And so that's kind of like, my earlier years of sports and how, football kind of shaped my life and how some people that impact my life early on.
Okay.
You
Okay.
know,
So did you play anything after high school or after middle school? Going to high school and college? Did you do that?
Yep. So middle school still played. played basketball. Well, my 7th grade year got cut from the middle school basketball team. I thought it was the worst day of my life. So on my way home, I'm like boo-hooing the hallway because I got cut from the basketball team my 7th grade year. But then like my 8th grade year, I made the team. So I played basketball and football at middle school. I think I still play like recreational baseball as well that year. And then once I got to high school, continued on with football, basketball, baseball, or even ran a little bit of track. So in high school, I just kind of like was just staying busy with everything. And there was I think it was my sophomore year. My sophomore year at high school, I went to Johnson. So my sophomore year in high school, during practice, I'm just like kidding around and was reaching up, running to go kind of like touch the rim. And it was a jersey or something up on the rim. And so like I grabbed it and I slipped and I went like flat on my back from the rim
Oh
on the
my
floor, like
goodness.
flat on my back. And at that point, I was like, I can't mess up, you know what I'm saying, my ticket to college. So my
Right.
10th grade year, I was like, no more nothing but football. Cause I just saw like my whole career flash in front of my face when I was just playing around at basketball practice. So I was like, at that point on, so my junior, senior year was just strictly football. I went to all the camps I could go to and just kind of focused in on football because I knew that was, my passion, and I knew that was going to be my ticket to college athletically. So, had a pretty good junior year, pretty good senior year, and, had some offers coming out my senior year, took some visits. But of course, a young kid, you want to go as big as you can go. You want to play on TV. And so like I had an opportunity to do that. Mississippi State offer. Do you want me to go into a little detail about like all that?
Well, just give us an overview about your journey through college
Yeah.
and how you got to college and
Yeah.
how what afterwards.
All right. So yeah, so Mississippi State, it wasn't because of my athletic ability and my talent that got me to Mississippi State. It was the connections and the relationships that I had built in high school with professionals that was, adults that was in the school that had connections. And so that's really how I got to Mississippi State. And so a lot of times kids, like they think like if I just work as hard as I can and like just like beat everybody and just stand out, then that's gonna be my ticket. But actually you need a little bit more than that. You need to build relationships with people. So you never know when you'll need somebody's connection to help you make another connection to get you to where you're trying to go to. So I wanted to make that point because, I did receive offers, but it wasn't what I felt my worth was.
Mhm.
I felt like I could play at the highest level. Like I knew I could play at the highest level, but I wasn't getting the highest level offers. And so, but it was those connections that I had made that helped plug me into that highest level. And so that's how I ended up at Mississippi State. And first year there, redshirted. So I heard about redshirting, but like it didn't dawn on me until I was actually redshirting, like what it was. And so it was kind of humiliating a little bit because you would practice, you went through everything everybody else went through, you would practice hard, but then on Friday they were getting ready for the game, like packing up, getting all the gear. And then like even my roommate, he didn't register. So like he was traveling. And so I'm still like staying in my dorm room while they're getting ready to travel for games. And so it was kind of like, humble. It was a humbling experience to see like my roommate that came in, with me to, I guess, be good enough to not have to red shirt. And I'm like, well, maybe, because people like tell you red shirt is a good thing, but at the same time, you don't feel it when you're going through it because it's like I work just as hard. At least let me travel. And so
Right.
it was kind of humbling to redshirt that first year. But once that was over with, everything started to make sense to me. But I did know from that point on because we started like summer school right at high school, and I knew in my mind like that I wanted to get something from Mississippi State. I wanted to get something from the deal, regardless if I played or not. And that was the case as I moved on. Like my second year, third year, I realized I wasn't getting the playing time that I felt I should. And I didn't, of course, I didn't make a big fuss of it because I was grateful for the opportunity. So what I did was I just continued to buckle down in my classes, make sure that I, was not having to repeat any courses, and I graduated early. And so I graduated early, and still had another year of eligibility. So I had a decision to make, whether I wanted to like just continue to go to school and get my master's at Mississippi State and not play my senior year, because they bring in new talent each year, right? They bring in new talent. I wasn't playing. It's kind of like I didn't want them to tell me not to, like, you don't have to come back, but you can stay in school, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, I can already feel it. I can already feel them like kind of going that way, kind of having those conversations around, like beating around the bush. And so I was like, I'm just gonna graduate and then I'm gonna go play my last year somewhere else where, they won't, what I'm saying, that I can enjoy, and people that want me to play, for them, and I can just kind of end my career on a positive note. So once I graduated from Mississippi State, I enrolled in A&M, came back home, and played, because I didn't have, if you graduate, you didn't have to sit out, right? Because even if you transferred up or down, you didn't have to sit out if you graduated. So transferred to A&M, and A&M recruited me out of high school, and they always told me, like, if you ever want to come home, you can. And so this was an opportunity for me to, make that happen. And so, transfer, went through a spring semester there, during the spring ball, and I was in grad school. So like I was, taking like a couple classes, and playing, and had a little side job. But was like a great experience. Like I went from some, politically, going on that level, everything is political, where I know I was capable of playing, but just never did get an opportunity, to now it's like, I started every game, and just had fun. Like it was non-political at all. Like I just had fun. I just played and just enjoyed the sport again, because it kind of put a bad taste in my mouth at Mississippi State, because it's like I'm grinding so hard, I'm working so hard, but yet still I'm not seeing the fruits of my labor. And so I'm like, it's kind of put a taste in my mouth, like I don't even want to play no more. But once I got to A&M, all that changed, and it was just fun again. So to end my career, A&M was really, really great. I'm excited. I was excited to be able to play at home with people. My family can, see me play every game. Just everybody that, knew me. It was like they was just there for support. And so it was really good. Like I never did second guess like where I would go after that. Like I knew exactly where I was going. Like after I decided to play my last year there. So it was a great experience. Ended up getting my master's degree while I was at A&M. So it was a great experience. I'm so grateful. I don't regret any moves that I made, because everything that I went through helped get me to where I am today. Right.
Right.
Yep.
And that's good. And you touched on a couple of things that I'm gonna just kind of like dive into. So you touched on you had a mentor, you had a support system, right? And I just want you to kind of just to talk about that and talk about how did they support you? I think you mentioned about Arthur Battle, and I'm sure there's some others. So just kind of talk about that support system and how they got you to where you ended up and with your college career.
Right. So yeah, of course, Arthur Battle was the one that kind of like just really kind of like just catapulted me out, of my shell of like, not holding back, right? Not holding back. And so, even through high school, he was still living, and, he would always come to my, he would tell me the real thing. Like he would tell me, the real, like, where I went wrong at, and like just basically evaluating me, what I'm saying? Letting me know, hey, if you're going to do it, you got to do it all the time and not taking any plays off. And so I continued, to listen to him. And then there was other coaches as well along the way, but he just, for some reason, he just was the plug for me, that like, for everything he said, I just took it to heart. But after high school to college, my freshman year, he passed away. But even before that, I still used to come home like on holidays and like summers, and like just go by and see him and visit him and things like that. So yeah, he was, one that I really felt that had a really major impact on me as far as a mentor is concerned, athletically, as well as, professionally, and, from a family standpoint. So he was one, but there was many more, and there was many more mentors in my life that I looked to. Of course, my cousins that played. Tyson, he played at Johnson, played Davis Hills Johnson, UAB, and so I would always go to his games on Saturdays too, and just kind of like keep my eye on him. Every step he made, I kept my eye on him just to see what he did. And like, he used to get me gear. Like when he was at UAB, he used to get me gear when I was at Johnson. So I would come back to Johnson with like UAB gear, like all the Nike stuff. Like everybody's like how I get all that stuff, and it just like kind of it motivated me to get to that next level, because my cousin did it, so I can do it. I want to keep the tradition going, right? And so and then of course I had other cousins that played basketball. Jamal, he played college ball at UAH. So it was just in our family to be good at what you do, and not kind of be mediocre. So those are some people that I can think of that come to mind right now.
Yeah, and that's critical, the support system. I know I had a huge support system as well. And since we're coming from the same background,
Yeah.
we had that big support system. And kind of moving on to, you talked about, early on you felt like football was your niche, right? That was your sport, that was your passion. And so you probably got labeled. I know you said you play multiple sports, but I'm sure you got labeled as like Carlton is really good at football. So he's that football player. And so what part of when did so you matriculated to middle school, high school, college, and then you graduated from Mississippi State, and then you graduated from A&M. But when did that change from Carlton, the football player, to Carlton in the role you are today? Can you speak on that?
Absolutely, that's a great point, T. And right before I touch on that, I want to go back and give a shout out to my parents, because like they
Oh
was
yeah,
at
Mr. and Mrs.
every
Rice.
they was at every single game. They never missed a game. I'm talking about from middle school to high school, no matter where the game was played at. Like Mississippi State, we had a game in Oregon, right? Eugene, Oregon. They right there. As soon as we pull up, they there. So yeah, I want to give a shout out to them. When you talk about support system, like it was like my parents made it happen no matter where. And like it's still to today. So I want to make sure I give them a shout out.
Absolutely.
Yep. So the question that you asked me is very profound, because that's kind of what the space that I'm working in right now with student athletes. There was a time, all right, so I'm a student athlete. I was a football player, like you said, football player all my life. Boom, middle school, high school, college, A&M, right? So after my last game, we start training for pro day, right? Where the NFL scouts come and you basically work out for the scouts, right? And so I was mentally like I felt like I had like, if the stars lined up properly, that I may have gotten a shot day, but at the same time, if it didn't, I felt good. I was okay, right? I was okay if my athletic career continued, or like if it didn't. Of course, we all got dreams and goals and aspirations to make it to the league, but I was in a place that I was like, if it doesn't happen, I'm ready for the next phase of my life. So here we go. We at pro day, right? We didn't train like for months after the season was over with, then did everything we know to do to make sure that we have a good production, like a good showing in front of scouts. So we did, boom, everything went fine. And at the end of the pro day, the NFL scouts was like, thank you. Like,
wow.
That's it. That's it. Like it was about, I would say 3 or 4 teams there, like from the NFL. And they was like, thank y'all. And I was like, I'm like, what? And that's how it ended. Like, that's how it ended, just like that. Like all my life, everything that I worked up to all my life, it ended with a thank you from the NFL scouts. And so at that point, I was like, that's it. Now it's time for the next phase of my life. And just so it happened that I was prepared, like I was ready. Like there's so many that get to that stage of thank you, and they don't know how to respond, right? Because they don't take thank you as like that's it. Like they continue to pursue, and so much of their years of life, or so much of their life have wasted, professional life has wasted chasing something that, had you prepared your life for before then, that you'll be ready to make that transition. And so
Absolutely.
I was grateful. I was blessed to be able to make that transition pretty smooth. So, immediately, I, started, seeking that, jobs and things like that. Like I said, after I had my master's, registered with the Career Service Center and A&M, and they would send you different stuff, and I would apply and I go to job fairs and things like that. So I was ready, right? I was
Right.
ready. I was just my approach to the next phase of my life was the same approach that I approached football,
Mhm.
right? I was just as competitive with trying to find a job like I was trying to be recruited as a student athlete. So it's imperative that student athletes understand that point. Like
Absolutely.
at some point, your athletic career is gonna stop. At
Right.
some point, and what you're
Yeah.
gonna do at that point is the big question. It's the big question. So I was blessed enough to, and what people don't know, I don't even know if you know, like I started working at what's that school? Um Jackson, Alabama, Red Chiefs,
North Jackson.
North Jackson.
I remember.
You remember? Okay, yep. So
Yeah.
they offered me a job at North Jackson. It was special education and football. I was a football coach, so that was the only offer I had at the point. So I'm like, I'll take it. But at the same time, it was special education. My field was physical education, so that means I had to go back to school and get the certification for special ed. And I was like, I really don't want to go back to school, so I kept applying. And then opportunity became available in South Carolina. I applied for, and so I ended up moving to South Carolina, and taught PE, coach football, coach basketball, coach wrestling, coach track, everything. Like it was everything. And then that next year, the principal was like, "What do you think about being the head football coach?" I'm like, "Wait, I'm 22 years old, 23 years old. I don't think I'm ready." Um, I just didn't feel comfortable, right? I didn't feel comfortable. Like right off the bat, after my first year, the principal was like, "What do you think about being?" Because he knew my background, right? He knew my background, so he felt I could be an asset to the students there, and and so I was like, I ain't ready yet. And so another year went by, coaching did my thing there, and then he called me back the next summer and was like, "I know you said you didn't want to be the head football coach. What do you think about being the athletic director?" And I was like, "Man, you got to be joking, right?" I was like, "You got to be joking," because I'm like, if you had asked me 5 years ago what I wanted to be, I would have told you, um, like an athletic director, sports administration, because I didn't think I wanted to be on the field out in the element for the rest of my life, right? Because
Right.
football, you out in all kind of elements.
Yep.
And so I was like, I enjoy the sport, but like I don't know if I want to be out in it like that every, for my life. So I just why I felt like athletic administration was more, something that I thought I would enjoy. So he asked me what I wanted to athletic director. He was like, "You have to tell me now, think about it and let me know." So I called my folks. They're like, "Can y'all believe the principal just asked if you want to be They're like, "You better take it, take it, take it." So I took it, and then kind of the rest is history. I'm still working in athletic administration from South Carolina. Moved back to Birmingham, where I was at community college as an athletic director, teaching physical education. Did that for 8 years, and just recently relocated to Florida, Tampa, Florida, University of South Florida, working as an assistant athletic director in student athlete enhancement. So student athlete enhancement basically is student athlete development, helping student athletes figure out their game plan for their life. Okay, so that's the area that I'm working in right now currently. So right now I'm working the dream job. Is a blessing that I'm able to help impact and mold those student athletes for their life, after their sports career is over.
Yeah, I mean that's a heck of a story, Carlton. I mean, just how you matriculated from just on the field to, I mean, you're
Mhm.
still someone on the field, but you're more so in the box seats as an
Right.
athletic director. So
Yeah.
that's pretty awesome. But the one thing I want to hone in on before we end this is the connection piece. You talked about this early on of how your connections, your networking got you to that position to be recruited to be able to go and attend and play for Mississippi State. So I just want you to talk about that, because I think that's super key on that connections, because
Mhm.
athletes, they got to realize that, yes, they're more than a sport, but not just connections in athletics is important, but connections just in life. Cause I'm sure that could have helped you as well when you went into the next realm of your life past the football field. So
Oh, yeah, absolutely, T. As I look back, all the places I've been, it wasn't nothing. It wasn't because of me. You know what I'm saying? None of the places that I have been to was because of me. It was because of who I know, because of who I was connected to, and the relationships that I built, along the way. So it's very important to work on yourself, work on building those relationships with people, never burning any bridges, so because you never know who somebody might be connected to. I know I mentioned that a little bit earlier, but that's so important. That's so important. Like, even just from a sportsmanship standpoint, like when you playing against an opponent, like it's only so much you can do from a sportsmanship, because you don't know who could recommend you, to another coach that could recommend you to somebody else. So it's always important to build those relationships, and really work on your professionalism, because you're gonna need those connections as you go. So yeah, my the opportunity that I had at Mississippi State was because my relationship that I had at Johnson, and some of the people that I knew there. And from once I got to Mississippi State, of course, the connections I had back at A&M,
yep.
right, got me
Mhm.
back to A&M. From A&M, just applying different places, and then from there, the connections I had from A&M got me back to Birmingham, right, at Lawson
Right.
State. So I made those connections at A&M throughout my master's degree, made connections, and that connections got me back, in Alabama to Birmingham, and then from Birmingham, my Mississippi State connection got me to USF, and
Yep.
so it's a 360. It's really, of course, you hear it all the time, is who you know, but T is actually who knows you,
Right.
because you can say I know him, I know her, but do they know you when it's time
Right.
to mention, to talk? Can they really talk about who you are, what you stand for, what are your values? That's what I mean about working on yourself when you meeting people in those relationships, because you can know as many people as you want, but do they know you when the time matters is really what matters the most.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Hey, Carlton, this has been awesome. This has been a
it
true
has.
blessing. Hey,
Yeah.
I'm so thankful you accepted the call to be able to be on the Mental Pulse podcast. Really appreciate you. And thank you once again. Completely enjoyed it. All right.
Thank you, T. Thanks for having me.
Take care.
All
Bye.
right. Bye bye.